I am going to get us started with kind of the theory of Scrapper, which I noticed in channel today we have several people that play Scrapper, so they know this. But to those that might be new, is our main jobs as a Scrapper are cleansing, healing, CC, and being a support of the group. So when I thought about becoming a Scrapper, I had already played a DPS class for a long time, so I knew what it was like to get bags and try to top the DPS meters, but there was always this little aspect of struggling to live, and so I decided to play a support class to try to start to learn what other classes were doing to help support me as a DPS player. And lo and behold, I ended up falling in love with Scrapper. And I would think if you're thinking about playing Scrapper, one of the best things, for you to realize is that, you're not out there to get bags. You're not out there to be on a DPS meter. And your job really is to cleanse and heal your group. And so that is the mindset you need to go in with a Scrapper. If you've played a healing class before on another game, this would be a wonderful class for you to play. And then I wanted to invite you, Leo, to share some of your insights about the Scrapper's role.
Well, you really kind of hit it there mainly with the idea of you just need to kind of get it out of your head that you're going to be doing any attacking. Because anytime you are going to attack something, you would actually be serving the group better if you were using a healing or support ability in that time window. Even if it's just as simple as the medkit's auto attack, which is that cone heal in front of you, because the damage you're going to do is a pittance. There's very, very few instances where I ever bother with any sort of damaging ability, and I'll go ahead and touch on those on a later point. But yeah, for the most part, if you don't have any other active abilities you're planning on using, that's exactly the one you want to be in.
Yep. So once we're in that support mind that we don't necessarily care about bags, but maybe we're a little competitive, support Scrapper still allows you to be a little competitive. You can look at a lot of the reports to see how you rank on cleanses and healing, and there's actually a healing extension that can be added on your add-on, so you can see how you're doing with that. But we're going to go ahead and now talk about the major cleanses. When I first started learning Scrapper, I didn't really make the charts. I was usually one of the scrappers towards the bottom. And so the first thing I started asking myself as I was trying to teach myself how to play was how do I start getting up there with the other great scrappers? And the first thing is to learn your major cleanses. And so the cleanse that you're typically going to probably use first most of the time will be your purge gyro, which is on your utility bar next to your heal. If you go ahead and throw that out around yourself and run around, you'll notice that it actually follows you, and it's an area cleanse, and so it's really great when you're hitting that beginning part of a fight and you still maybe haven't established where you're going to stand and bomb. So this is the type of cleanse you want to use when you're moving around. And so all of your Condi cleanses I'm going to teach you today, you will most of the time almost always be off cooldown. But just as if you know that this one follows you, you can use it optimally. All right, your other cleanse I want you to take a look at is in your Medikit, which is your healing skill. So go ahead and hit that. And this is another big cleanse. This is the cleansing field number 3. Go ahead and hit that. You'll notice that it casts right on top of you, and when you move out of it. So that's a stationary cleanse. I typically will, it's not that I necessarily hold my cleanses, but again, you can use it optimally. I only throw that if I know we're going to be sitting there for a little bit, especially if the fight's already begun, because it's stationary. If you're throwing it while you move, well, it's probably not doing anybody except the people behind you any help. So in a fight, I'm putting that down when we're bombing or staying somewhere when Ares like stand on me, stand here and bomb. Well, you better believe I'm putting that bad boy down. All right. Another big cleanse comes from the third place, which is in a strange spot, but it's in your elixir gun, which is that green gun on your utility bar. So if you go ahead and get in that, you'll hit number 3, which is a spray that goes out in front of you. In order for this cleanse to work, you do have to hit an enemy. And then if you read what it does, it actually removes the conditions of the people around you as well in an area cleanse. And so this is a very big generator of cleanses. And so again, when I'm entering a fight and I'm thinking about my cleanse rotation, I'm gonna run in. I'm gonna pop my gyro first as we're still moving. Aru's gonna call for bomb, so we're stationary. I stand, I'm putting that down on us to the best of my ability. And then I'm usually turning around in my elixir gun and I'm spraying fumigate on people for that cleanse. Now, if it's a very tricky fight and you're like, "Ooh, man, we need more cleanses," and I'm still on cooldown, there's actually a little trick cleanse that's also in your elixir gun that you can do right there. So I'm just gonna show you that rotation again real quick. I'm running in. I've got my gyro up, my cleansing one. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna be stationary for the bomb. We're moving. Move into my elixir gun. I'm now fumigating, and then you can hit your water, which is it's called the super elixir, and then you can blast it with your 4 and then hit weapon swap again, and you get another little cleanse off of that.
I want to jump in on that part real quick. The number 4, and then for the sake of the recording, I'll go ahead and do it unmodified. When you hit it, it blasts the ground beneath you and then launches you backwards.
Yeah,
Uh,
so you gotta cancel it out.
Yeah, the way to cancel it out is specifically to hit the weapon swap button. Like if you hit one of your other kits or you hit that kit button again to drop it, that won't work. It specifically does have to be your weapon swap. So I'll go ahead and do that again,
Yeah,
followed
go
immediately
ahead.
by a weapon swap. So you see, I didn't actually move. I was launched up, but before I was launched back, I jumped out of it, so it left me in the right, or where I started. And the important thing there is if you don't cancel out of it, sure, you're given a blast, but now you're launching yourself completely out of position and you don't really have an easy way to get back where you need to be.
Right. Yep. Thank you, Leo. I would also like to say sometimes it may benefit you to move backwards. Let's say you're trying to get the hell out of there, and you know the way the group's going. You could use it to your benefit, but 95% of the time, you're going to cancel that out with your weapon swap, and you probably will need to practice that. I was actually really bad at it for a while, and another wonderful scrapper taught me that when you're in your elixir gun and you're in 5, and you hit 5, your super elixir, and you go into your hammer 2, you can actually it's not a blast, but it's a combo finisher, and because it's a light field, it will also, as long as you hit somebody, it will also give you that cleanse. So you could either use the blast from your elixir 4, or again, if you're kind of struggling and you're like, I'm really bad at that, more safely you could swap into your hammer and use your whirl, and it will give you the same extra cleanse. All right, those are your main. Oh, yes.
And sorry, another option is if you're covering your flank, like you're facing the folks that are behind your tail, basically, you can hit the 4 for the elixir gun and launch yourself, towards the tag safely, while adding that cleanse to the folks that are they're lagging behind. So without having to worry about canceling that animation. So that's an option.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
get
that's what I
get
was mentioning about in 4. Sometimes it's to your benefit to use that for
mhm.
movement, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
But
great
that's one
point.
application is basically to cover our tail and launch towards the tag. So definitely, yeah, there's definitely a lot of uses.
So, back to these being our major cleanses, these are the ones you want to practice the most. If you're starting as a scrapper, that's what you should be practicing. And I would say I would prioritize your gyro, your number 3 in your med kit, your cleansing field, and your elixir gun 3. And then for the hell of it, go ahead and practice your 5-4 and elixir gun with out of your weapon swap for your cleanse combo. From then on, you're going to rotate those cleanses throughout the fight. And again, you're going to optimize those cleanses based on if you're moving, let's put down the purge gyro. If you're stationary, let's try to get that medkit 3 down. And just getting good at when those cleanses are best, because that's going to help everybody. At this point, I think I would like to mention one more skill. It's not a cleanse, but it's a big deal, and I think that's Aero. I see him putting it on right now. The defense field is a dome around you. It grants stability. And even though that's not a cleanse, it is big when you're in fights. As a scrapper, I typically never use that when I'm running into a fight. You should be getting plenty of stabs from your guard, and I'm always glancing down at my bar to see if I have stab up. And so that way I can use that dome to not just my benefit, but the benefit of my party. If let's say we're in a hairy situation and I don't have stab, I can then use it for myself and my party in those moments where you're like, oh crap. It's kind of a great way to help support your guards. And again, I typically don't use it upon running in. You save it for that moment when you have those call outs from people that they're stuck or whatever, then you can give stability. All right, moving on. Did we have any other questions about any of that stuff so far? Okay.
Nothing for me.
All
Yeah.
right.
The cleanses themselves, like we talked about a little bit at the very beginning, those are really your top priority. Like, each class kind of has a main job. For firebrands, their main job is going to be stability. For scrapper, your main job is cleanse.
That's right. And like I said, if you're a starting scrapper, just practicing those 3.5, 4 things will make you good. And from then on, it's just about growing to be better after that. I am going to add something on. I wasn't really planning on this, but I had already kind of shown you what my rotation is whenever I go in, if you could even say scrappers have a rotation. But I am Leo, I don't know if you're going to agree with this, but I am a big fan of the bulwark gyro. And if you ever watch any videos where I'm scrappering, when we are advancing after the empower, the stealth and empower, I'm always putting that on with hammer 4 and then going in. That's going to give us, so your gyro is going to give you the super speed and the quickness that you're looking for, and your hammer 4 grants barrier and blocks, so you're getting a little extra protection, but typically nobody's hitting you on that, so it's just another way to give the group quickness and super speed when you're going into the fight. So I'll start in with the gyro, and then I'll hit my 4, and then now we're fighting, so I'm going to hit my purge gyro, and now I'm in medkit, and I'm going to hit 3. If you hit 5 after 3, this kind of segues into what I'm going to talk about next is healing. Man, I really want to go into healing. But anyway, I feel like I should keep going with that. After you hit your cleansing field, elixir gun, you're going to spray your cone, you're going to put down your water, the little water, and then do your area cleanse, and then cancel that. Now, there's more combos than that, and Leo's going to go over some of those a little bit later. So we are just going to go straight into healing. which is why I stopped there for a minute because I felt like going into it. We might cover it here. So go ahead and go into your med kit. So Scrapper's second main job is healing, and even though the things that the reports that are provided, our World v World reports are provided, they do give us the healing stats. Unless you're running the extension, it may not show as much healing as you're actually doing. So some people who are running that will might look like they have higher healing stats than you. So if you ever want accurate reports, you may want to think about getting that healing extension so that you can really compare yourself to the others. But anyway, you'll notice that we are wearing monk runes, which the runes of the monk, if you read it, it provides a little bit of extra healing. It does healing effectiveness to other allies, increases healing effectiveness to allies by additional 1% for 3 seconds after granting a boon to an ally. So it's just a major way to heal. So when you're not cleansing and all your cleanses are on cooldown, you're typically going to be in this med kit. And when you're in med kit, your major thing is to cleanse. So I want you to go ahead and hit your number 3 and your number 5, and it's going to do a blast. And so if you can, look at the cooldowns, they don't always match up. So you've really got to watch your cooldowns here. But that blast gives an extra boost of healing. So when I throw it down, if my 5's available and we're stationary because we're fighting anyway, it's a good time to make sure that you're doing that in combination if you can. 3, then 5. 3 cleanses, 5 gives that little bit of extra boost. Now, if you're just around your friends and you're noticing, man, Leo and Dio are both so low, you're probably just going to use your 4 and just do a quick little area cleanse around you. Otherwise, you're most of the time going to be hitting your 1 all the time, always, and it's in front of you, so you won't heal people behind you. So you actually kind of have to direct your body in their direction while you're constantly healing 1 to do that. It's the same thing with 2, provides a regen. I find that to be the least effective heal of all of them. I tend to prioritize the others. That could be a mistake on my part. But again, when you're in your med kit, your big things to remember are 3, followed by 5 for that little bit of extra with the blast, and then 4 for that nice big little bit of area heal, and then constantly in 1. And I typically am using 2 when I'm just like, oh my god, we need heals everywhere. And I could put the heals on.
A couple tips I'd like to throw out specifically
Yeah,
for
sure.
1 and 2 is the Medkit 1 Med Blaster is a 600 range cone, which is the exact same as your Elixir Gun Fumigator. That is also a 600 range cone. So you can keep that in mind when you're positioning, because like usually on a push, like if you want to push in a little bit behind the rest of your group, both of those cones are going to be centered on them because they're in front of you. For the number 2, the Bandage Blast, I always call that the shotgun heal, because it shoots out the 5, but if you're like right up in somebody's face and then do it, all 5 bandages will hit them. But the trick to that skill is if you have an ally who is downed but not double downed, the bandages will hit and heal them on the ground. So you can just run up to where they are and shotgun heal them to their face, and you're going to see their health bar jump up real fast because all 5 of those bandages will hit them before they spread out. But that's a really good way to get somebody up a lot faster.
Yep. So just to kind of thank you, Leo. So just to kind of wrap up what I covered was again just how I typically play Scrapper optimizing cleanses, and I've gone over the rotation a couple times. I just wanted to add one more to it, which Leo's going to go over our utility belt, but and probably stealth. But if you look at your utility belt and see your function gyro, let's say Arrow or your commander calls for super speed and you need to give it immediately. It will cast immediately with that, and you just cast it right where you want it. That's just what I wanted to say with that. So if we're going into combat again, I'll begin with bulwark gyro. You're going to hit your hammer 4. You might go ahead and put down your function gyro where they're calling it for speed. You're going to go in. You're going to hit your purge gyro. You're going into med kit. You're going to hit 3. You're going to hit 5. Going into your elixir gun, you're going to fumigate. You're going to put your water down in that gun, and then you're going to either go out of it in 4, or you can weapon swap out and whirl in your hammer 2. And then everything else after that is healing from your med kit, or you're all ready to go back through your cleansing rotations and using your dome as needed for either yourself, your team, based on what you hear the call outs happening if people need stab. All right.
So the third task that the Mediscrappers do, once your cleansing is done and everybody's completely healed up, is you do have a few options to provide CC and some other support. Maybe not as much as other classes, but what we have in that category is still better than what we have as far as damage options are. She's already touched on a few of them. For example, Medkit 5 throws out that little, it's almost like a mine that explodes 1 second after it hits the ground. That gives swiftness, vigor, and regeneration for, per my tooltip, 18 seconds to everyone in your party. And it also serves as a blast finisher. So that can be used inside water fields, such as your Medkit 3, or light fields, such as your Purge Gyro, in order to blast healing in water or another round of cleanse inside a light field. So, for example, if I throw out my Purge Gyro right now and then throw that number 5 at my feet, when that exploded, it said Area Condition Cleanse. If I did that inside the water field, it would say Area Healing. Another option you have for a little bit of light CC is while you are in your elixir gun, your number 2, it's called Glob Shot. Very minimal damage. Really, the damage isn't worth caring about, but it's on a pretty short 8-second cooldown. You can target an enemy with it, and it'll hit them with 3 seconds of cripple. And then the shot will actually bounce 3 times, and every enemy it hits gets 3 seconds of cripple, and every ally it hits gets 5.5 seconds of swiftness. So what that ends up resulting in is if you have some allies chasing people down, it slows the enemies down while speeding up your allies. I had also broken in earlier and talked about Elixir Gun 4. Little bit of damage, again, basically irrelevant. It's much more useful for the blast finisher it provides. So for the hammer version of the Mediscrapper, which is what Dee has been talking about mostly, your 2 blast finishers are going to be your Elixir Gun 4 and your Medkit 5. The big thing about the Medkit 5 is just remember that it does have a 1-second fuse after landing before it pops. So if you throw it at your feet, it's going to pop exactly 1 second later. If you throw it out at max range, it takes 2 seconds to land and then has a 1-second fuse. So now moving on to the utilities and tool belt skills we have. Bulwark Gyro. That creates a field around you that gives you barrier, and then it redirects, I think, 33% of the damage that your allies inside of the field take to you. But you do need to be careful using this, because if you do that in the middle of a bomb, you have potential to redirect massive amounts of damage to yourself. But that is why you always want to combo it with one of your blocking abilities. On Hammer, it's the Hammer 4 that channels for 2 seconds and will block all of the incoming damage during that 2 seconds. On the Shield variant, which I'll go over in a little bit more detail a little bit later, it's going to be Hammer 5, which is a similar channel. Sneak Gyro, which is our elite, This is arguably the best source of stealth in the game. It just creates a pulsing field that will pulse for it pulses 6 times. Once when it lands, and then 5 more times once per second, and each pulse gives like a second and a half of stealth. If I mouse over it, it shows 3 seconds, but that's because we're in the PvE arena right now. And a lot of times, your commander is going to call for blasts in that field, because each one will proc an additional instance of the stealth. Oh, good, map is closing in 5 minutes. We'll see about jumping over there in just a second. But on my screen, I'm going to go ahead and throw it down, and then I'm going to try and hit it with all of my blasts if I can. It can be tricky, because on the shield, you actually have an additional blast, and I'm running shield. So I'm going to go Sneak Gyro, Medkit 5, Electro Gun 4, then shield. So with all that, I just get, well, like I said, it's PvE rules, but I ended up with 12 seconds of stealth there. You're going to have more like 8 seconds when you're in, or 8 seconds left over when you're in World versus World. Then the tool belt for Bulwark Gyro is your defense field, which D had gone over. It's just a nice big projectile blocking dome that gives 3 seconds of stability for 11 seconds. And like I said, it's 11 seconds assuming you're running the same gear I am. Because I have the concentration and the boon duration and stuff like that. But that's on a relatively short 25-second cooldown, so don't be afraid to use it. The tool belt for your Purge Gyro is Chemical Field. 25-second cooldown, generate a poison cloud. If you drop it, it just creates a poison cloud at your feet. The only thing this is useful for is dropping on downs, because if you poison a down, it messes with their healing. You can also, if you have downs and you're also wanting to do some cleansing at the same time, your Fumigate will also do some poison. Just be sure not to waste it on doing poison. Just, the poison is like icing on top for the cleansing it does, but the cleansing is your priority. The tool belt skill for your Elixir gun is Healing Mist. It's 35 seconds and it gives a little bit of regeneration. Ignore all of that. The Healing Mist is your only stun break. Never ever use it for that regeneration. It's an absolute waste. You want to save that for when your stab runs out and you get stun locked or something like that in order to break out of it. A couple months ago, there was a big nerf that basically halved the amount of super speed that a scrapper can put out, but we do still have several sources of it. Our personal heal, which is on our F1, is 10 seconds. Well, here it says 10 seconds of self super speed. I think it's 7 seconds of self super speed in World versus World, and then 3 seconds of ally super speed. And then the function gyro will also give super speed to yourself and allies that are inside of its range. Your personal heal is just around you. The function gyro has a range of, I think, like 900, and it'll give it to anyone inside that field. Your last source of super speed are going to be your 3 gyros, your Bulwark, your Purge, and your Sneak Gyro, because all 3 gyros pulse. On the final pulse, the gyro will also give super speed to allies inside of its radius. And you can see the radius whenever you pop the ability. As long as an ally is inside that circle, then they will get the super speed. Additionally, because of our traits, specifically kinetic accelerators, anytime we grant super speed to a target, they will also get quickness. Like I said, since we're in a PvE map, it's showing 4.5 seconds of quickness, but it's more like 1.5 seconds. So with proper management of those 5 sources, we can keep a respectable amount of super speed and quickness up, even if it's not as much as it was prior to the nerf. The next section, we're going to talk about the 2 weapon variants, but why don't we take a second to switch over to the new version of the map so it doesn't close in the middle of it. So, yep. The meta variant of the Mediscrapper runs Hammer, which D's going to go ahead and go over the specific Hammer skills.
Alright, guys. don't know how to tell you this, but I I only use hammer for a couple of things for specific uses. I would like to preface this also by saying I'm actually a big fan of the pistol shield variant, and I do think there's a place for either weapon, and I actually would recommend everybody to have both of those weapons, a hammer or pistol shield. Sometimes there's difficult fights, and it would be really nice to be like, hey, scrappers, let's move into um, pistol shield variant so we have extra support to be able to give the group in tougher fights. But that being said, hammer does have it's what I've played most on. Pistol shield used to be a meta um, build before hammer came along, which even though pistol shield provides some stuns and CCs, hammer was kind of paired with crates to to make Mediscrapper a little more CC ish, and it's just kind of stuck around. And so a lot of scrappers like having hammer because it does allow them to use things to get those tags, get those hits in. But not being a fan of getting those hits in or making sure I'm getting those tabs, I tend to use the hammer just for support type purposes. So I'm actually going to start with the last one, 5, which is Thunderclap. When we're approaching a group and you have the opportunity to go ahead and stun them, I throw that out and throw that so that hopefully they do get stunned and we can get that bomb on them. So you can use that in your approach or anytime Error's calling for a CC. Um, Going backwards, because that's apparently how I like to do things. Shock Shield number 4. That's the one that we talked about before. It provides a barrier in that block, and so just as Leo mentioned before, when you hit your bulwark gyro for that speed, you want to make sure that you're pairing it up with 4. You can also, if you happen to be in your hammer for some reason in the middle of a fight and you need that little bit of extra protection for yourself, you can use 4 for that as well. 3, in my head, I think of it like a leap. If you hit, go ahead and target rugs. Most of you guys are the opposite color, and just leap at them with your 3 skill. You'll see how that just rushes you forward towards him. You could use this as a defense mechanism for yourself whenever you're in a fight and you need to get out, but you're having a little trouble with movement. You could target an enemy that's in the direction that you're trying to go, kind of like with Necro or other classes using that skill for that. And then your number 2, Electro Whirl, it does some damage. So if you're wanting to hit things for some tags, which again, it's not something I prioritize nor recommend other scrappers to, but it is a button that you have. But you'll notice that it is a combo finisher, a whirl finisher, and depending on the field that you're hitting with it will yield different results. And then of course your number 1. Um, I rarely use 1. I'm either using all my other skills or I'm trying to heal people. So, um, yeah, that's my thoughts about hammer. Leo, you might have a little more insight into hammer rather than what I had suggested. So if you have anything else to add, please feel free to.
That covers the majority of it. I think I'd probably focus more, since you covered the positives of it, the negatives of hammer. For me personally, I've always had a lot of trouble with accidentally yeeting myself completely out of position by hitting rocket charge because, it's the number 3 skill. Well, the med kit number 3 is a cleanse. The elixir gun number 3 is a cleanse. So it's real easy for me to accidentally be in the wrong kit and then hit number 3 and then realize, oh, I have just left my entire group behind because I was in hammer. So that to me is the biggest concern with hammer and something that you definitely need to stay aware of if you are running hammer. The only other thing I can think of that you didn't mention was that the number 2, um, it spins, it hits twice, it's 2 whirl finishers, but it does reflect projectiles. Your defense field will stop projectiles, but your hammer 2 will reflect them. Really good way to deal with like necros in lich, or a ranger with longbow doing a rapid fire on you. And that's pretty much all I have for hammer.
Yep, me too. I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. So after the hammer, I'll go ahead and discuss the pistol shield, because this is a version that I've been toying with for a while, and I've really grown to like it for a number of reasons. The first difference is that you do actually change one trait. In your build, when you look at inventions, the very first tier, usually you're running auto defense bomb dispenser, which drops a smoke bomb that does some blindness when you're disabled, and it's on a fairly short 20-second internal cooldown. But when you're running shield, you want to swap that to overshield. What the overshield trait does is it reduces the recharge of your shield skills by 20% for one, but it also makes it to where when you use a shield ability, you will actually grant protection to your allies in your subgroup. And with my amount of concentration and everything, it's at right about 5 seconds. The cooldowns for the shield skills are 20 and 24 seconds, so just from those, that's basically protection up half the time. For the specific skills in Pistol Shield, the Pistol 1 auto attack, honestly, there's never any reason to use this. Even if all you're wanting to do is use a simple little attack to start tagging people, rather than using this pistol ability, you're going to be better off going into Medkit and using the Tranquilizer Dart. It fires just as fast. The disadvantage is that the dart from the Tranquilizer Dart skill only hits one target rather than potentially hitting 3 with a small explosion, but it does weaken whatever it hits. So, if your group is chasing down a particularly squirrely target or something like that, by hitting them with the elixir gun, you're going to be basically neutering with weakness. Either way, that's neither here nor there. That's the auto attack, and you don't really need to plan on doing those. The number 2 ability is the Poison Dart Volley. 8-second cooldown, which is pretty short, and it fires 5 poison bullets. This is really handy, like if you have several downs, because you can trigger it, and then you can just, while facing the direction of your enemies, you can start hitting tab to swap targets. And so you can potentially hit, multiple targets with this skill all in one cast. So I was just able to tab enough to hit all 3 of you with at least one poison shot each, which no damage, but now your healing is messed up, and sometimes that can make all the difference. The number 3 ability is 12-second cooldown. It says discharge a lightning shot that bounces between multiple foes, blinding and confusing them. The confusion is negligible and doesn't really matter. The important thing is the blindness, because what you have there is on a 12-second cooldown, you can blind 4 people. So if I run up here and I target D with this pistol 3, it should bounce to basically everyone standing over there, and you all have several seconds of blindness. And that can be really useful, like right before let's say your group is moving in to engage another group, you pop that out right at the very beginning of the engagement, and you've just blinded some of their opening big hits. So it helps negate the beginning of their counter bomb. So moving into the 2 actual shield skills. Both shield skills have 2 stages to them. You trigger it the first time and it begins to channel a shielding ability. You can activate it again during that channel in order to get a second effect. So for Magnetic Shield, which is Shield 4, it's a 3-second channel, and that channel will reflect missiles. It doesn't stop any normal attacks, but it will reflect any missiles that come to it, and you can trigger it again while it's being channeled for a blast finisher. That's the extra blast finisher that the shield setup has. That also pushes enemies that are nearby. So I'm going to move over here and go ahead and trigger it. So if Knack Jockey, if you'll go ahead and just start shooting me with your tranquilizer darts. AFK?
I was fucking muted. What's up? Sorry.
Okay. Oh, so you guys are shooting me, so I'm going to use my shield 4, and it'll start reflecting, and then right before my channel ends, boom, I trigger it again to do a blast that pushes you all away. And of course, like with a lot of other blasts, you want to be careful not to do it. Like if you're using it for stealth, you want to be careful not to do it near any enemies. Otherwise, you're just going to basically negate all your stealth. Shield 5 is actually, honestly, one of my favorite skills in the game now that I've gotten back to using it. It is a 2.5 second channel block, and it's a lot like the Hammer 4. Whereas with Hammer 4, everything you block will give you a little bit of barrier. With this one, any enemies that hit you in melee will actually be stunned for like 1 second when they hit you. So that can be really good to pop like at the beginning of an engagement as well, because it'll, interrupt people's opening combos and stuff like that. But when you are running the shield, that is the skill that you want to trigger along with Bulwark Gyro, because that block will also negate the incoming damage because it all gets blocked. That channel lasts for a slightly shorter than the other one. It lasts for 2.5 seconds. When you trigger it before the end of the channel, you will actually throw your shield, and it throws like a boomerang. It goes out and then comes back in unless it hits something. Like if it hits a wall, then it disappears. But anything it hits during its flight will now be dazed for 1 second. So I'm going to throw it here. I have Chikari targeted, so it should go through D, hit Chikari, and then come back. So I'm channeled, I'm going to throw it, boom, boom, comes back. I think I got blinded by D's...
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just explaining for the sake of the video the reason that it missed you on the way back. I got blinded from her auto defense bomb, blah, blah, blah. But otherwise, that's what it would have done. So you can do that right through the middle of a enemy blob, and I don't think there's a target cap on it. So you could potentially, interrupt quite a few things. So that's really the big difference between the hammer and the pistol shield. Like I said, with the build, there's only one trait difference. All the other traits are the exact same. And that pretty much wraps that up. I think that really gets to the end of the workshop in general, but if anybody has any questions, now is definitely the time for them. Did we just do such an amazing job that everyone has all their questions answered?
There's a lot of buttons.
There really is, and I know that can be a big turnoff to people first starting in Mediscrapper, and that's why whenever I'm teaching Mediscrapper to somebody, I always say just take it one tier at a time. The first thing you need to teach yourself are your 3 primary cleanses. Your Purge Gyro, your Medkit 3 Cleansing Field, your Elixir Gun 3 Fusion. Those are your 3 most important abilities. If you're not using one of those, you just need to be sitting in Medkit and throwing out this automatic heal. Once you're comfortable with those 3 cleanses to the point where you don't really have to think about them anymore, that's when you can start looking at some of the other extra tricks, like, throwing finishers into the combo fields and things like that. But if you just focus on those 3 cleanses and then the healing, that's the most important part of your job by far.
Yep. And I'm sorry, Leo. I just want to point out, like, if you just do those 3 things and you're doing them optimally, meaning you're hitting that Purge Gyro while you're moving and your group needs it, and you're hitting that Cleansing Field in your Medkit 3 while you're stationary and the group is bombing, if you're using them when you should be, you will be right up there with everybody else that's performing on cleanses. So if you see yourself underperforming on cleanses, you really haven't mastered those three paths for cleanses, or you haven't mastered movement that allows you to live long enough to cleanse. And those really do need to be mastered before learning all the other buttons.
Now, I do have a written Mediscrapper guide as well that whenever I get this video posted, I'll go ahead and include that link like in the description of the video as well as in the Discord post when I post it, so that you'll also be able to look back and basically reference all of this in writing as well as the video in case you just like need a quick refresher and don't have time to click through a video or something along those lines. But that resource will be there as well. I mean, you can come to me or D basically anytime if you have questions. But really, the best way to practice is really just going to be, get on the field with a group and just focus on that cleansing. Like if you never deal a single point of damage to another or to an enemy player, that's totally okay. You don't need to do that. You're keeping the people who can do that from falling down.
I have a question.
What's that?
I don't know anything about NG. Is there any cleanses that you have that like prioritize like a mob? Because that's like
No.
a big killer. I don't know if there's like a cleanse priority to any of these or.
You have, or actually no, not with this build you don't. I was going to say there are some abilities that will specifically prioritize the immob on you, but as far as like immob on your group, that just by game design is a low priority condition, so it's notoriously difficult to cleanse. Really, the best way to avoid the immob is honestly to try and avoid it, which is a really crummy answer, but it's unfortunately the only one we got. That one is always a problem. For the most part, I believe with damaging conditions, they are removed in the like reverse order they were applied, so the newest one is removed first. But non-damaging conditions, I think, are below that. And since immob is a non-damaging condition, it's on the lower end of the priorities for the game systems.
That is not cool.
It's really not. Does anybody else have any questions? Alright, in that case, I think we're pretty much good to go.